As I, Norma Bullock at 25, approached the imposing modern medical office building in Baltimore, I held onto the hope that neurologist Stephanie Hager could guide my sisters and me towards a rational path in life. Dr. Hager, renowned as the amnesia expert at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, was both a part-time professor and ran her own practice. Securing an appointment with her was no small feat, requiring a recommendation from a doctor friend, especially considering that my health insurance didn't cover the consultation. The upfront payment for the 1-hour office visit amounted to $650 for me and my sisters. Upon entering Dr. Hager's plush anteroom, shared with 2 other neurologists, I encountered a friendly receptionist. After a brief 2-minute wait, I was ushered into Dr. Hager's office. Prior to entering, I discreetly activated my recording device, aiming to accurately relay the discussion to my sisters later. Dr. Hager's office exuded sophistication and luxury, tastefully adorned with her academic achievements from Northwestern, Harvard, and Tufts, alongside numerous accolades. Despite her impressive credentials, she appeared youthful and composed, sporting rimless glasses that accentuated her professional demeanor. Her attire was impeccable, each garment exuding quality, and her straight-layered lob hairstyle impeccably styled. The following excerpt captures the essence of our conversation. Norma, you mentioned over the phone that you wanted to delve into questions about amnesia, particularly in relation to pregnancy. However, I believe a thorough understanding of your background is essential for offering the best advice. There's much ground to cover in an hour, Dr. Hager remarked. Thank you, Dr. Hager. I'm happy to provide background, but before we proceed, I need assurance. Our conversation is protected by doctor-patient confidentiality, correct? I inquired. Unless you disclose intent to commit a crime that would harm another, yes, she affirmed. Would it be acceptable to discuss hypothetical scenarios? Some of the matters I'll bring up aren't necessarily actions my sisters or I intend to pursue, but rather for general knowledge, I proposed. Certainly, Norma. We can speak in hypotheticals, she agreed with a smile. Feel free to let me know if you need further adjustments. I'm part of a rare occurrence, an identical triplet, a phenomenon that statistically happens only about once in every 200 million births. My sisters are Gail Minton and Julie Frost, and we're all 25 years old. What sets our story apart is how we came into the world. Born to an 18-year-old mother who chose to place us for adoption through a church, we were each taken in by different families in 3 distinct cities, though never more than 250 miles apart. Our adoptive parents never disclosed our triplet status, likely because they were unaware of it, I began. A peculiar hypothetical, Dr. Hager interjected. It gets even more peculiar, I chuckled, pausing before continuing. For various reasons, all 3 of us independently decided to undergo genealogy testing with 23andMe when we turned 21, perhaps spurred by some form of triple telepathy. Each of us had felt a sense of incompleteness throughout our lives, prompting us to seek out answers through DNA analysis. I was the last to receive my results. So, hypothetically, you all conducted these tests independently, within 3 months of each other? Dr. Hager inquired, clearly taken aback. Exactly. Anyway, by the time I received my results, Gail and Julie had already connected over the phone. Upon seeing my updated results, they promptly reached out to me. Initially shocking, it eventually made sense, considering the lingering sense of incompleteness I had felt my entire life. We arranged to meet at a central location, just a 90-minute drive for each of us. Taking a sip of the beverage provided by the receptionist, I noticed Dr. Hager's intense gaze before continuing. At our first meeting, we were astounded to discover not only our identical appearance, but also our shared hairstyle, similar clothing choices, and numerous common mannerisms. We were all pursuing teaching certificates, albeit in different states, with the aim of teaching elementary school. Additionally, we all had boyfriends of roughly 18 months, and upon exchanging photos, we noticed a striking resemblance among them, despite their differing sizes, professions, and ages. I suppose, hypothetically, it's not uncommon for identical triplets to share similar mannerisms and preferences, Dr. Hager remarked, taking a sip of her own beverage. We took it a step further, I continued. Our mannerisms seemed entirely genetic rather than influenced by our environments. We shared the same laughter, expressions, and outlooks on politics, religion, and nearly everything else. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect is that we all harbored a desire for novelty in our relationships, but out of respect for our monogamous boyfriends, we refrained from acting on it. Nevertheless, after spending a full 28 hours together, even sharing a California king bed in a hotel, we pledged to stay in touch. To facilitate this, we purchased 3 burner phones, vowing to use them exclusively to communicate with each other. Let me know if this fits your needs or if you'd like further adjustments. Dr. Hager's eyebrows lifted at some of my remarks, particularly the mention of desire for novelty, yet she refrained from interjecting. To condense a lengthy tale, as I must seek your counsel within the hour, Dr. Hager, following frequent virtual communication, 3 subsequent meetings, and clandestine marriages to our respective boyfriends, each relationship concealed from the others, Gail convened our initial postnuptial gathering, approximately 5 months after the last wedding. Gail, being slightly more outspoken than Julie and me, broached the notion first. Although Julie and I had entertained similar thoughts independently, I explained, exhaling deeply. What? Dr. Hager inquired. Can I reiterate that this is hypothetical? I grinned sheepishly. You've already clarified, no need to repeat, she assured with a smile. All right. Gail proposed that we engage in intimate encounters with each other's husbands to satisfy our desire for novelty without their knowledge. Julie and I readily agreed, acknowledging the necessity of learning each other's histories and meticulously aligning our appearances to execute the plan. We were exceedingly eager to embark on this endeavor, I continued, my excitement evident as I nearly spilled my beverage while attempting to take another sip. On that very day, we visited a spa and underwent procedures to ensure absolute physical resemblance. This involved matching haircuts, pubic hair grooming, identical nail and toenail polish, ear piercings for me to match Julie and Gail's, and inducing a scar on my and Julie's knees to mimic Gail's, along with similar markings above Julie's and Gail's hairlines. Additionally, we procured identical toiletries, perfumes, and makeup, practicing application techniques to achieve uniformity. Furthermore, we instructed Julie to adopt Gail's exercise regimen for consistent muscle definition. Our efforts yielded remarkable success, as subsequent tests confirmed our indistinguishable appearances, I recounted. Remarkable, Dr. Hager remarked in awe. We then devised the initial plan to engage with each other's spouses. Sharing comprehensive reports compiled over months, complete with photos and videos documenting interactions with our husbands, adoptive parents, and close associates, we strategized. I would engage with Julie's husband Bill, Julie with Gail's husband Kevin, and Gail with my husband Cameron. Weekend getaways were arranged, carefully timed and distanced from one another. Though apprehensive, we were also filled with anticipation, I concluded, noticing Dr. Hager's rapt attention, her mouth slightly agape as she sat on the edge of her seat. It seemed my story had captured her interest. I can recount my personal experience, and I can relay Gail's and Julie's experiences based on what they shared with me. It was incredibly exhilarating. I had more orgasms in those 3 days than I had in the previous 2 weeks combined. Every aspect of it was electrifying and intense, and my sexuality seemed to ignite something in Bill. I developed strong feelings for him, both him and his equipment, and by the end of the weekend, we were both exhausted and moving with some difficulty. His parting words were, "That was the most incredible sexual experience of my life, you alluring little minx. God, I love you, you're tight." Well, you get the idea, I recounted, taking another sip while noticing Dr. Hager's eyes widening in surprise. Gail's and Julie's experiences mirrored mine, although I like to think mine might have been the most fulfilling. Regardless, it gave us a reason to continue. Over the next few years, I spent 4 more weekends with Bill, and similarly, Gail and Julie did with Cameron, Bill, and Kevin. Then, about 9 months ago, we had a serious discussion, I continued, feeling the weight of the impending revelation. After a tense pause, during which I felt myself blushing, Dr. Hager reassured me, saying, "Continue, Norma. I won't judge your hypothetical scenario, you can relax." Taking 2 deep breaths, I proceeded. None of us were in a good mood during our discussion. We danced around the issue until Gail finally spoke up. "We're acting like zombies. If I share what's on my mind without judgment, will you two do the same?" Julie and I agreed, and Gail confessed, "I've fallen in love with Cameron, and I want to be his wife instead of Norma." Dr. Hager's eyes widened further as I continued. After the initial shock, Julie admitted, "I've fallen in love with Kevin, and I want to take Gail's place." Surprisingly, instead of feeling overwhelmed, I grinned and confessed, "I've fallen in love with Bill, so perhaps we can arrange a 3-way switch." Chaos ensued. Once we had confirmed our desires through additional encounters with our chosen partners, we knew no further switching would be necessary. We arranged another weekend with our desired spouses to solidify our decisions. Now, onto the hypothetical question. I paused, feeling a lump form in my throat. Dr. Hager urged me on, saying, "Go ahead, finish your hypothetical." Taking a deep breath, I continued, "At the beginning of this summer, when school ends, we're all changing jobs to avoid working with familiar faces. Our menstrual cycles align, and we're having our IUDs removed simultaneously. We plan to make the switch a week after school ends, conceive with our new partners as soon as possible, and continue our lives with them. However, we're concerned about potential slip-ups in the future, despite our intimate knowledge of each other's lives. Therefore, we were wondering if, when we're pregnant, faking falls and feigning selective amnesia could serve as a credible excuse for certain lapses. Additionally, would you be willing to meet individually with us and our new husbands after these accidents to explain the concept of selective amnesia?" Dr. Hager gazed at me for an extended period, contemplating deeply. She then diverted her attention to the window, leafed through a reference book, and after a considerable delay, just as my time was running short, she finally spoke. "There have been recorded cases, particularly involving pregnant women, where head trauma resulted in selective amnesia. Although exceedingly rare, comparable to the rarity of identical triplets, it is within the realm of possibility. If approached individually by 3 different women and their husbands regarding the potential occurrence of such an event, I would have to acknowledge that while improbable, it is indeed possible. Moreover, I would uphold the doctor-patient confidentiality in each case." Overwhelmed with emotion, I burst into tears and impulsively embraced Dr. Hager. She comfortingly patted my back and handed me a tissue when we parted. "There's an alternative to consider in your hypothetical situation," she gently suggested. "You could meet with the husbands, disclose the situation, and pursue legal divorces and marriages." Though I knew that option would likely unsettle our husbands and result in the dissolution of our marriages, I remained silent. Dr. Hager continued, "However, if hypothetically, the 3 women were set on the course you've outlined, here's a website with an article you should all read." She handed me a slip of paper with the web address written on it. Expressing my gratitude to Dr. Hager, I gave her a warm hug before leaving her office, tears of relief mingling with joy. When I convened with Gail and Julie, no longer in the realm of hypotheticals, we unanimously agreed that Dr. Hager's alternative proposal wouldn't suffice. We delved into the suggested article, absorbing vital information for the new lives we were about to embark upon, and subsequently set the date for our husband and life exchanges. After exchanging essential documents like driver's licenses, passports, and birth certificates, the appointed day arrived, a Friday, following a week of school closure across our states. I prepared Bill's favorite meal, aiming to replicate Julie's culinary skills, and afterwards, nestled beside him, I broached the subject. "Hey, big guy," I began, using Julie's usual endearment for him, "I'm eager to start a family. I promise, the journey will be the most enjoyable of your life. How about it? Your business is thriving, and even if I need to pause work for a while, we'll manage just fine financially." "What's this I hear about the most enjoyable time of my life?" he chuckled. Without hesitation, I dropped to my knees, teasing out his erection, and while maintaining eye contact, began to pleasure him orally. Despite the striking similarities between Julie, Gail, and me, the reason we each fell in love with one another's partners ultimately boiled down to our divergent sexual preferences. For instance, Julie isn't fond of performing oral sex, whereas I thoroughly enjoy it. She prefers tender lovemaking over intercourse, while I revel in both, but if forced to choose, I'd opt for passionate fucking. I relish communal showers and the prospect of shower sex, whereas Julie doesn't. I derive immense pleasure from having my breasts sucked, a sensation Julie finds pleasurable but not as arousing as I do. Fortunately, Bill's sexual desires align closely with mine rather than Julie's. He appreciates blowjobs, breast play, vigorous intercourse, and communal showers. Similar dynamics exist between Gail, Cameron, and Kevin, so with our exchanges, we've achieved complete sexual compatibility with our respective partners. Once I had thoroughly aroused Bill, I murmured, "I won't indulge your baby makers in my mouth until you've made me pregnant," swiftly removed my panties, and, still partially clothed, straddled him on the couch. Guiding his erection into me, I rode him vigorously as he deftly undid my blouse and bra, eagerly fondling my breasts. As I approached climax, he pulled me close, sucking on my nipple, and I climaxed forcefully, my pussy gripping his cock tightly as he ejaculated, simultaneously pleasuring me and filling me with his seed. After we both regained our senses, nestled together, we exchanged affectionate kisses. "You'll keep your promise, won't you, you insatiable vixen?" he chuckled. "I'll wear you out, you rascal," I retorted between kisses. About a week later, after indulging in wild sex, oral and tit play, and various debaucheries each day, as Bill and I lay in bed post-coitus, he kissed me tenderly and remarked, "Julie, I've always adored you and our lovemaking, but never have we been as perfectly in sync as we've been this past week. Are you changing?" I smiled at him, kissed him passionately, and replied, "I want to satisfy the father of my children, to be his ultimate sexual fantasy. Now, why don't you let me rouse you for another round," as I slipped beneath the sheets and took his slick cock into my mouth. Despite a few hurdles, the subsequent years unfolded surprisingly smoothly. Regular conversations with Norma and Gail. Now that I assumed Julie's identity, I addressed Gail as Norma to acclimate to our new roles, revealed that they were thriving as well. Shortly after moving in with Bill, I likely conceived, with confirmation coming 6 weeks later. I staged a faux fall, resulting in a painful welt on my head, and feigned partial amnesia for a period. Bill and I visited Dr. Hager, who provided us with a copy of the article she had previously shared, which my sisters and I had practically memorized. Bill left the appointment convinced that, while rare, my selective memory was genuine at the time. I welcomed a healthy, beautiful baby girl, whom we named Mary Elizabeth after Julie's adoptive mother and Bill's mother, almost precisely on my due date. Norma also gave birth to a healthy baby girl about 3 weeks after my delivery, and Gail welcomed a healthy baby boy about 10 days after Norma. All the fathers were overjoyed. Life seemed to be proceeding smoothly until about 14 months after Mary's birth and 13 months after Norma's and Gail's children were born, we became a bit greedy. Though Bill was an exceptional lover, I found myself missing certain quirks that Kevin, and especially Cameron, possessed. Thus, I broached the topic of another weekend swap with my sisters. The sexually adventurous duo readily agreed. However, managing the exchange with young children proved challenging, necessitating swapping kids before husbands. Unfortunately, the weekends didn't unfold as smoothly as anticipated. Kevin, particularly, seemed suspicious during our time together. I had hoped that life would return to normalcy after our unsuccessful swap, but about 2 months later, Bill came home one Friday evening with a broad grin, announcing that he had won a free weekend at a resort, and we would be leaving with Mary the next morning. His excitement was infectious, and I eagerly joined him as we set off for the resort. Upon arrival, Bill suggested we head to the southern terrace for a drink and to watch Mary play. Seemingly innocuous, until I spotted Kevin and Cameron sitting there alongside my sisters, their expressions ominous. As I sat down beside my sisters, feeling like I was facing the guillotine, Kevin sneered, "All right, what's going on, ladies?" Epilogue. Amidst tears, impassioned discussions, and some heated exchanges, the men eventually united and ventured out for a night of drinking, advising us not to wait up and to refrain from complaining if they returned with company. Thankfully, they returned alone the next day, nursing hangovers from their escapade. While they recovered, Julie, Gail, and I reached a decision. We acknowledged our mistakes once more, offered sincere apologies, and affirmed that they led enviable lives, including fulfilling sexual experiences. We pledged to maintain the current arrangements, or else we would pursue divorces and claim custody of their beloved children. To our surprise, when sobered, the men simply acquiesced. However, they stipulated that we must each get distinctive tattoos in a visible location as a permanent marker of our identities, with a postnuptial agreement solidifying the arrangement and ensuring familial confidentiality. 4 months later, all is well. The men confessed that the switch improved their sexual satisfaction, and our indistinguishable appearances and matching personalities leave no trace of our past identities. To reflect our sexual preferences, I sport a shark tattoo on my ankle. Norma, formerly Gail, has a hawk, and Gail, formerly Julie, chose a butterfly. Occasionally, we, along with our spouses and children, mingle with extended family members who remain blissfully unaware of our true identities. Everyone appears content, and we have kept Dr. Hager's involvement confidential, grateful for her assistance. Write your opinion in the comments. Thanks for watching and have a great day.